Hello everyone, happy new year. Welcome back to the channel. It's officially 2024 and we're going to start the year off. Well, maybe. I don't know when this video is going out, so we might have started the year off already. But this is the first video I plan on filming. So we're going to talk about my favorite books of 2023. Now, instead of picking out just like random ones, not random ones, but like instead of doing like a normal format, I'm going to be doing it as I've seen quite a few people doing it this year, and that is going to be picking my favorite book from each month. Now, I may be doing this a little bit prematurely. It is currently at December 30th. I still have two books that I'm in the middle of. One I know is not going to be a favorite of the month, but one very well could be. So I have a book picked out for December already, but it is very possible that this new one I'm currently listening to may edge it out. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It depends on when I edit this, if I will let you guys know up in the screen somewhere if that has changed. But we're going to talk about actually there's 11 books, and I will explain why when I get to it. So in January, my favorite book that I read is Runaway Road by Devney Perry. This is the first book of her Runaways series. There was a read along for this series at the beginning of the year, and this was like one of her first series. I don't know if it was her first, but it was one of her early series, and I had a lot of fun with this. It was kind of, I think I read somewhere that Devney Perry got the idea from the Boxcar Children, and kind of like what would happen to them as adults, like where would they be now. So she wrote a story of this group of friends living in a junkyard together. They all ended up there with for different reasons, mostly running away from not good home lives. And now we have, they've all gone their separate ways. They're like in their 30s now, and are in the first book, I can't remember names, sorry, London, her and Carson, who was like the one guy that was lived in the junkyard first and kind of gathered them all together and kept a good watch on them. So he and London lived in a Cadillac, and when she left, she eventually got hold of the Cadillac, had it shipped across the country and restored, and now she plans on bringing it and giving it to Carson as like a gift. And along the way, it kind of ends up becoming a relay with this car, because of course she breaks down somewhere in the very early on in her journey across the country and falls in love with the mechanic, and eventually ends up relaying the car, giving it to the next friend who has a mission to go. It's like a whole relay. It's really, really fun, interesting concept. I gave this one 4 stars, and I really liked it. I liked other books, I think, in the series a little bit better, but for January, this was definitely my favorite one. Then for February, started my read of the series I will not shut up about, and that is the Timothy Blake series by Jack Heath. This is the first book, Hangman. This is when I read it. I forget when I think I mentioned this before, that I found the second book at the dollar store. It was at the Dollar Tree, so it was $1.25. I realized it was the second book of a series, so I got the first one. I mean, I really don't think I need to keep explaining what this book is about. It's an FBI guy who's working at a cannibal that works for the FBI, and the humor in this is fantastic. If you can get around the cannibalism part of this and just enjoy the story and enjoy the ride that our guy Timothy goes through, I guarantee it's a good read. It's a fun read. So I just give it a try. Please give it a try. I thoroughly was very surprised how much I actually really enjoyed this book. And I ended up giving it 4 stars. And then we go into March, and no surprise, my favorite book of that month was the second book, the one I found at the dollar store, Just One Bite. Actually, I think this was rebranded. It was called something else before. It was another H word. No, not Hideout. That's book 3. It was called something else before. I can't remember what it was. But this is the second book. This is the one I found at the dollar store. Still really, really loved it. Had a lot of fun with it. I gave it 4 stars. I still recommend this series. Cannot rave enough about it. Okay, April is the reason we only have 11 books this year, because April was the start of my horrible reading slump that lasted through pretty much all of the summer. April was the month that I couldn't finish any books. I had like 3 or 4 started, couldn't get through any of them, wasn't liking anything I was reading, so there are no books for me to share in April that I liked. Because I didn't finish any of them. So we're skipping April and going straight to May. And May was a reread, and that is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I read this in preparation to read Hellbent, which never happened. If you've watched my... I don't even know if that video came out yet. But spoiler alert, I did not read that book in 2023 like I anticipated. I re-listened to this one. I still really loved it, really enjoyed it. I don't remember if I gave it 5 stars the first time, but the second time around I dropped it down to 4. I think I did give it 4 the first time because it still is so slow. Like those first 150 pages are just so slow to me. And I physically read it the first time. I listened to the audio the second time and I still felt the same way. But this is still a really fun dark academia book. And I need to read Hellbent. Like I do. Okay, and then we're going into June, which was my big audiobook sprint through the summer. I think that's what got me out of the slump, was listening to audiobooks. This one in particular was a hell of a ride. And that is Cartel by Lily St. Germain. This book, I found it on a whim. I was listening to other things, needed something new. This was relatively short. Didn't expect what was in this book at all. It is very, very dark. It is a cartel. I believe our heroine, I can't remember her name. Her father was like a runner or something for the cartel. He gets a shipment, gets intercepted by one of the government agencies. And as payment and for his mistake, they take his daughter. And it's a whole thing from there. There's also an association with a motorcycle club. And that leads to even more chaos. And it leads to the spinoff I'm currently reading, which is the Gypsy Brothers. This book was just insane, but so addicting to read. So addicting. I ended up giving it 5 stars? 4 stars. I ended up giving it 4 stars. And then July, we're skipping to book 3 because it is a trilogy, and that is Empire, again by Lily St. Germain. This one I gave 5 stars. This whole series was a 4 and 5, this whole trilogy I should say was a 4 and 5 star. And also even the spin-off novella series, the Gypsy Brothers, has also been 4 or 5 stars so far. But this one in particular was wild. It was, when I say dark, I mean like you need to check triggers before you go into this, because there is some shit that happens. There is an infant murder, I should say. There's a lot of gruesome things that happen, especially at the end. Like, it is very, very dark, but you know that's my shit. So like I get into moods where like I want my small town fluffy cowboy romances, and then I want this shit. And I think this is what I needed to get me out of the slump, because after that I was doing a hell of a time. I had a hell of a time after reading this series and getting it out of the summer. And then August, we have another reread, and that is Kill Switch by Penelope Douglas. We all know this is my favorite book of the series. This is Damon Torrance's book. My love. I love him so much. This was actually, we started this, so in July, we took a vacation to Alabama, and we started listening to these on the trip there and back. We listened to Corrupt, we listened to Hideaway. We started and got through like 80% of Kill Switch. We didn't ever finish it, so I had to finish it on my own physically, because of course I can't just like not finish it. I had to, I mean, I know what happens, but like I had to finish it. So this has ended up being on my wrap up for August. I still love it. I still give it 5 stars. I needed to go back and read Nightfall now, but it's been a while now. But yeah, this is still my favorite book of the series. And then September, we should not be surprised that I'm picking book 3 of the Timothy Blake series, which is Hideout. This is where I kind of like, I don't know if this was my favorite one. I gave this one 5 stars. I think I gave the other books 4 stars. This one I gave 5. This was probably maybe my favorite book of the series. Book 4 was not my favorite, but I still had a lot of fun with it. I don't really want to go into too much detail about this. It's still the same series. There are slightly different locations and things that happen, obviously, but still a hell of a fun time. And we have a whole new cast of interesting characters that we get introduced to, and it's a lot of fun. Please read this series. Like, please. I don't see it anywhere. I think I've seen one YouTuber that I barely follow. I follow her on Instagram mostly, that has mentioned this book, and that's primarily because she lives in Australia, where Jack Heath is from, so she's like aware of him more. Pick this series up. Just do it. Unless you like really can't do the cannibalism thing, just do it. Please. All right, and then we are into October, and that, my friends, is Lotus by Jennifer Hartman. I don't think it's any surprise that one of her books is on here. This is actually, I think, the only book by her I read this year, and I kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off because I knew. I don't know if it's my favorite of the year. It's very close. It's probably a 1-2 punch for favorite of the year. But this is the companion novel to Still Beating. I also wanted to read this before The Stars Are on Our Side because, as I mentioned before, we get to meet the hero and heroine from Stars Are on Our Side in this book, and we get glimpses of like the beginnings of their relationship and what happens with them. So this book is so good. It's about the boy that was kidnapped he was kidnapped as a boy for like 20 some years. Then he is finally like free. He finally finds freedom and now has to acclimate to the real world, even though he was been told his entire life that the apocalypse has happened, and he's been kept in like a basement or a bunker by this man. The twist and the reason why he's down there, Jennifer Hartman, I want to live inside her brain, because the stuff that she comes up with these twists and turns of things is just, I love it. It's so good. If you haven't read her, please pick her up. She doesn't always do dark stuff. There is a couple like lighter side. I think her Heart Song Duet is a little bit on the lighter side, but like, just pick her up if you haven't yet. I really need to read more by her in 2024 because I have so much of her backlist to get through. And then in November, we have one that I am late to the train on, which we all know is a Sarah. That's a Sarah thing. Oh, I gave Lotus 5 stars, by the way, if you didn't figure that out. But in November, we took a trip to Illinois. And on the way there and on the way back, we listened to Haunting and Hunting Adeline. And I will say that Haunting Adeline, the first one, is my favorite book that I listened to or read in November. It lives up to the hype. I know it's all over TikTok. It's all over whatever. I'm not on TikTok. I'm not on any of that stuff. I have Instagram and YouTube, and that's like it for me. So I haven't had this shoved down my throat like a lot of people probably have. But I'm going to tell you that I believe this book stands up to the hype. If you can't, like, it's a dark romance. It's a dark stalker romance that has human trafficking elements to it. I will say this book is not as dark as the second book, but I will also say that I have read darker things than Hunting Adeline. We're just going to leave it at that. I will also say Hunting Adeline was not my favorite that I read out of duology. I think Hunting Adeline is not my favorite. I think Haunting Adeline is much better. I gave Hunting Adeline 4 stars. I gave Haunting Adeline 5 stars, which is why it's my favorite of November. I also think Zaid Meadows is a boss, and I love him, and I love his character, and we're going to leave it at that because I really don't think I need to say more about it, because if you read it, you know. And then we're going to go into December, which is the book that I may be prematurely saying is my favorite of the month, but we're going to go with Love Light Farms by B.K. Borison. I was pleasantly surprised by this. I was doing a video of reading Christmas books, Christmas romances. This one wasn't even really one I was going to pick up. I was going to read one in place of it, but I ended up just, because it's an audiobook, I get through them a lot easier and a lot quicker than I do physically reading. And I loved this. It was so cute. It's a friends to lovers, which y'all know I hate. I don't hate it. It's just, it's not my favorite trope. This one is one of the exceptions to that, and it's probably one of the books that'll make me re-examine my dislike of the trope, because they are friends to lovers. She owns a failing Christmas tree farm that she didn't realize was having problems until after she bought it. But in order to get money to save it, she enters this like social media kind of contest. But she lies and says that she's running this Christmas tree farm with her boyfriend. Now, she needs to find a boyfriend because the person running the contest is eventually going to show up on the farm. So she convinces her best friend Luca to play her boyfriend for like a week, just so they can get through this interview and the visit from the person running this contest. And of course, Luca is like all for it. He's like, absolutely no problem. This is the best Christmas ever, because he's always been in love with her. Go figure, you know? You do only get it from her POV. It would have been nice to get from his POV. I do think you get like the epilogue chapter from him, but the rest of the book is from her POV, which was still cute. It was still really nice. We get to meet the characters and the couples from the subsequent books, which I'm really excited to get to. In the Weeds is Beckett's book. I'm really excited for that one. We've got Mixed Signals, and then of course book 4, Business Casual, is coming out this year at some point too. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I gave this 5 stars. I'm pretty sure. The only book that may very possibly edge this out is Big Nick Energy by Morgan Elizabeth. I am still in the middle of reading that. I have not finished it yet at the time I'm filming this. So if I have finished it, before I edit this, and if there's still time, I will let you know up in the text somewhere whether or not that edges out this or not. But for right now, that is my favorite book of December. And those are the 11 books of my favorite, 11 of my favorite books that I read throughout the year. Let me know down in the comments below what your favorite books were in the year, if you read any of these. If you've read the Timothy Blake series, because I keep recommending it, please let me know. I would love to know. I would love to hear. But that's going to be it for this video, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!